I feel like when you go to college, there's always a like ticking time bomb for people to kind of find their friends and like claim their people. It's like that like anxiety you get when you're sitting alone in the dining hall and a group of eight people all chatting walk in and you wonder if you're like falling behind or something socially. I think when you go to college, and personally I did this too, you start treating social life like a race rather than a process. Instead of letting the people come to you and creating natural friendships, you end up chasing something that might not be the best fit for you. And it's a very real problem because I think a lot of people go into college thinking if you don't find your friend group in the first semester, you might just be a loner or a floater for like the next 4 years of your life, which is just not true. I think a huge reason for this has to be that comparison is the thief of joy. I know probably hear it a lot, but I think social media like Instagram, when people post group photos of like everyone together thinking they're all best friends, and in reality it's like they just met at the party that night, but they're gonna post this photo because it looks like, I'm with a lot of people. And this like FOMO, especially like if you're someone to like spend a lot of time in your room alone or stuff like that, really makes you feel like you're missing out on like a core experience of college. But I think social media like Instagram is just like in the end a performance and not necessarily proof of any real meaningful like tangible thing because people are just going to post what they want others to see, right? And I don't think while it will affect like the thought process of like making friends, I think the more you're able to push that out, the more satisfied you will be alone or with certain people. Uh, as for like my personal experience wrapping up my first year of college and going into fall semester, I was able to make a pretty close group of six friends off of orientation week. I think the orientation really set us up to be close to each other and have like a deep understanding of what each other's values were. I think that why it began to fade out over time was just because we were all very different people with different interests, and the friend group was tied together rather maybe through a kind of fear of not being involved in like friend group activities such as going out, going on trips, and like having dinner together, which was why maybe this friend group kind of stayed together for a long time. But like then again, I do love each and every one of them, and we're still incredibly close, and um, I still talk to them all on an individual basis from time to time, but I think just the difference in values and interests was what kind of faded us out rather than like sticking together through the rest of like spring semester and all. I think this is where like kind of the idea of the title comes from of like you don't need a friend group. I think having a big friend group has a lot of problems where if you can kind of fit into this other like framework that I've kind of been like in for like the rest of college, it's going to be a bit more beneficial in my eyes. I think in a big friend group, there's like well, obviously the politics of like fitting in. I think you kind of become like a duller version of yourself to kind of keep peace or like match the collective energy of the friend group. You know how like friend groups always have that like kind of vibe, like this is gonna be like, oh, the frat bro friend group, or this is gonna be the gossip friend group or something. You kind of like match your or like shift your vibe to kind of match what the friend group is going for. And I think that often ends up to be like you're not being your true self and you're kind of playing a role, right? I also think there's a huge problem with like characters in friend groups. I think like there's always got to be the funny person, there's always got to be the quiet person, there's always got to be the person that plans everything. And I think this is like a huge issue and pretty draining on like, for example, like the person that plans everything. You just have like another like nine people leeching off of your work the whole time. Rather than like if it were a possibly a smaller group, you would just split the work amongst the three of you, the two of you, because it's just more, it's like an easier way to balance work. Whereas in a large friend group, you're gonna have conflict, you're gonna have to have one person step up, but then that one person will always feel like they're putting in more effort than everyone else. I think the last issue with big friend groups is that there's always like a subgroup, whether it's like a duo or like a trio, just like two or three people that get closer to each other, and whether that's because of like shared interests, other things, I think that ends up causing like disruption in the friend group where you feel like you're being left out or there's just different vibes, and that's how I think a lot of friend groups fade out. I think now it's time to talk about like what ended up happening to me. I think for me, after I lost that like big friend group, I started just having a lot of close individual friends or friends in trios, right? And I think that was a huge thing for me because being someone who is not incredibly high social battery, um, and also someone who like social battery drains really fast in like large social contexts, I think having the value of a bunch of smaller like friend groups or trios allows you to kind of be meaningful about when you decide to take social interactions or like um and hang out with people, right? Because like the value of being like kind of like a floater means that like you can move between circles. Like when the vibe is more like you want to go out and party, you can go to these people. When it's more I gotta lock in, there's another group of people you can kind of meet up with, right? And worst comes to worst, if you want to be by yourself, there's no one bugging you constantly to, or there's no like fear of missing out because all your friends are sitting in one place. Whereas like in this situation, you have like a wide spread of friends, and like being alone is just something that you can do because you don't feel the urge or the FOMO of being like away from people, right? Um, I also think that a huge thing with having like not fewer friends, but just like friends spread across stuff is that there's a huge like quality over quantity benefit where I think being in a big friend group, while it is there definitely can be quality, I think that you are getting very similar people in a big friend group. And if you continue to hang out with that big friend group, I think um you continue to like merge yourself with those people and become more like those people. Whereas if you have a lot of like split friends, you can kind of pull qualities, like the best qualities from all your friends together and kind of learn more. Because, like, a huge part of learning is learning from other people. And I think the more widespread of people you have, like, meaningful, deep connections with, the more you will learn and become a more well rounded person. I think the last thing here is that um, if you stop treating the social life in college or anywhere like a race and just start being yourself, doing what you actually love, I think you just become like a magnet for the right people to come around to you. Because people will see that this person's genuine, this person shares my interests, and they will want to be friends with you rather than you chasing something that is just not possible. I think like in closing, like it's impossible to like find your people when you're just busy trying to like be someone you're not. And the second you stop being that person to try to fit in a friend group, the right people will eventually like just come to you, right? So I guess kind of you're not fall like in the end you're not falling behind on social life. You're not falling behind on making new friends. You're not lonely. You're just becoming someone who is worth knowing and worth being a closer friend to.